myös sen verran aikaa, että tekijöille on annettu vapaammat kädet tehdä aika villimpiä juttuja, niin kuin esimerkiksi hirvittävän monimutkaiset loot-systeemit, craftaukset ja muut, mitä HC-pelaajat haluaa peleiltään. Ja peliä tulee esittelemään Warnerilta Jonathan Quisenberry, jolla on epäilemättä luvassa hieno esitys. Kiitos.
Tää on tosiaan kunnon aplodit sitten, kun kehittäjät tulee lavalle. Annetaan kunnon vastaanotto.
Hello. So, I don't speak Finnish. I apologize. I think you'll understand me. So today we're going to talk about War in the North, right? For the introduction, I'm from Snubline Studios with Dark Alliance, Triumph Games, Norath, action RPG games. Some co-op in there. And our follow-up project was this one with Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is the daddy of all fantasies, right? And at the same time, some of the things we set out to do with this project are a little bit different than you may have seen in previous Lord of the Rings games. To start, Lord of the Rings is about fellowship. It's about working together, and yet we maybe not have seen so much of that in the games previous. So central to our game, you can see it here, 3 characters, co-op, all the time. That's what the game's about. You have to work together or you won't make it through the game. We've designed the levels so they're a challenge, and working together is part of the game. So if I'm playing by myself, then I can choose one of the characters and the computer takes over the other 2. If I'm playing online, system link, or couch co-op, friends can jump in as well anytime, drop in, drop out. So co-op was the first thing we shot for. The second thing was a brand new story. So our story takes place in conjunction, parallel with the War of the Ring. So our story starts with meeting Aragorn at Bree, and then proceeds, so touch points to the film, to Rivendell. And then when the ring goes south to Mordor, our story leads north. Gandalf himself had said from the books that the war would have been lost if it weren't for a few heroes who stood defense of the north. So basically, while Mordor was pushing outward towards Gondor and Rohan, there was a sweep happening to the north, and that's what you go exploring in our game. So expect to see those touch points to the movies and some of those characters, but also expect a brand new story in many areas you've never seen before. We were fortunate to have both the films and the novels to pull from, so we've got a lot of content. The last thing is this Lord of the Rings game is mature rated. It's a little darker. We've got gore turned off here for the presentation, but there's slashing, hacking, dismemberment. When you're facing an orc down, you're not just going to bump him in the head, he's going to fall down. I mean, he's there to eat you. So in our game, we wanted to represent that a little bit. We'll get started, get into a little bit of combat. The whole game surrounds around co-op, but it's this action RPG loop. So you're going to be in action, very simple combat mechanics, but complex when you get on the battlefield. And we'll go into the loot section, the RPG elements, in just a minute. So I'm playing the dwarf, Fair the dwarf. My red bar is the health bar, the blue bar is the energy bar. I use energy to perform special moves. Combat is very simple. It's X for standard attack and Y for heavy attacks. At the same time, I can pull the trigger to access special abilities that I've defined to this point, and again, use the same X key and Y key. And of course, these have cooldowns. Every character also has both melee and, of course, ranged combat. And if I spent my points right, and I wanted to do that, then the X and Y key also become useful in this case as well. So in every instance, combat is very simple and very fast. Blocking and rolling is important when you're tackling big foes. We'll go up around the bend here. This is Gundabad, Mount Gundabad. It's a hidden dwarven fortress high in the northern mountains. Right now, it's been taken over and overrun by orcs. So we're on a quest to explore that and find out just how infested the keep has become. So we're going to confront a couple of different enemy types up front. This is Urukai, heavier, unblockable attacks, followed up by some archer orcs, and we'll find out some breakers here in a minute.
In this case, the weapon I've chosen for my melee has clearly a fire property to it. And that could be either a found weapon, or I can slot the weapon. Weapons in our games, many of them have slotting, and you find elf stones throughout the adventure that augment them in one way or another. It's also important to note that when you're finding loot in the world, it's shareable. So I can willingly share all my loot with either the store for money or with my fellow members as well. Okay, move on in. The lockers I mentioned. So as I mentioned, the environment's filled with loot, and that's the entire objective of an RPG, right? To fill your coffers as well as your experience bars and skill points. And our characters, they individually have specific skills that are unique to them. So the dwarf has characters that are specific to him, the elf likewise, the human. They are complementary skills, so those skills work together as a team. I don't know if you noticed it, but the elf character had cast a spell, a shield spell, protecting us at one point from the ranged combat. That's called Sanctuary, and depending on how she levels that up, it can be used in later stages as an explosive trap, so as enemies come closer, it can ignite it and explode. It's an area effect. Or also, if I'm inside and I'm the archer or the dwarf and I'm using a ranged weapon, cycling through that shield and hitting out gets coated with fire, basically, and so it does fire damage additionally when it hits the target. Skill points are assigned through this section, so you can see that no matter how I fill, if I was to play a dwarf, if you're playing a dwarf, 10 levels in, we're going to be playing 2 different dwarf characters. These are the elf stones I was talking about. I'm a bit rich in them at the moment. And here is the classic inventory screen you'd expect. So this is where I have items to choose from. Explore some of those. There's different requirements for each, and this is a great opportunity to share those. So I can give that to Andrea. And if you give it to one of your AI-controlled characters, later on in our game, you can swap the character that you're playing. So if you've been playing the dwarf for 10 levels and you want to go in and the next time you level out, you want to be a dwarf, or I'm sorry, the elf, then you can go into that character and start playing as well, and you start at the same level. So if I was 10 and I go and play the elf, I'll start at the 10th level. And any items that you will have given your AI buddies at that point will still be in the inventory. So it really does you good to share out those inventory items where they belong. And again, that's whether it's your AI friends or whether it's online to your actual friends. One last point about that is our game is persistent, so your save games count no matter what you do. So if I'm playing on the couch, back to that example, and I'm playing by myself up to 10 levels, I jump on and I want to play in your game. If I find, no matter what I find in your game or what experience I earn in your game, I get to bring that back to my local game as well. So no matter what you earn and find, there's no shifting and changing profiles, etc. to go into someone else's game online. The same character you play, both locally and online, counts. So we'll bounce out of this now, continue with some of the action. We put markers like the one in front of us throughout the levels to make sure that the team stays together. It's less important right now for the AI, but if we're working as a team, one of us doesn't want to have the advantage by getting ahead of everyone else. You saw that I was doing a lot of rolling. When it comes to bigger enemies, it's really important. And there's one of them. That. Last time I played this, I got my bottom handed to me, so we'll see how this happens. Shield, and in this case as well, if I stand within the shield, I heal faster. Now, I've been knocked down, right? Hopefully, they can revive me. If the 3 of you go down in the level's over. So it's important for you to keep the rest of your mates up and running as well. And that's part of the companionship. Caught that one well. Lure him out. There's an additional thing we can do. Let's see if I've got it. There isn't. He's being ugly today. There we go. All right. Finally. Yeah, I managed to do that decently. So I'm standing inside the bubble, and you can see my health rapidly increasing. That's the way this particular character chose to increase the skills, where she chose to spend her points. Again, through the world, the enemy drops and item finds are important. And let's continue on into the next section. I'm afraid I think that there's another troll in here, as I remember. Let's see. And there is, all right. If I can dispatch this a little faster. Oh, it's 2 of them. So you see the one above my health meter, that's a health potion, which I have only 1 left of. So there's a chance that I'm not going to actually make it through this, but I need to stay within the shield bubble. Unfortunately, the enemy's inside. So she just used the shield bubble to do area damage. Alright, this may be the end, folks. Come on. Come on. The end is near. See? Let's try that again. Thanks, controller. Alright. And try a minute more, and if not, I'll give up. Alright.
I must have aid.
Headshots do more damage. Blocking the shield again. Come on. Rangers at the other end, stuck by the other troll, of course. So this is a good segue back to the loot system I was talking about earlier. In all honesty, those guys are going to be tough, and I didn't expect 3 of them. I expected 2 of them. I did want to take a second and go back to the loot because I wanted to explain that each of our characters has the unique abilities. You've seen a little bit of that. The dwarf character in these cavernous areas has the ability to see weaknesses and structures because he's from the earth, something that the other characters can't even see. So I'll see a weakness in the wall, and it oftentimes will unlock a special area or some hidden gems, and it's something that you have to work together and communicate. The elf character, for instance, has a crafting system built into her abilities, and so as she's going through the environments, she can collect herbs and plants to mix them together in different potions and share them with the rest of the team. And then the ranger has a tracking and evasion ability as well. Really, overall, the game is about working that together, and that co-op is the central part of it all. We wrap it up in the brand new Lord of the Rings tale, and the action, I think you've seen that a little bit. It's not simple, it's challenging. This is, again, about 3/4 of the way through the title, through the game. But the RPG elements there are there to help back and forth through the cycle, right? It's that great reward loop. You play, you get loot, you reward yourself with new levels of experience, and you go back to battle them again. All in all, there's about 24 levels in this. There's challenge maps and side quests as well. We have hub systems, so that when you go to the hubs, which are sort of this connective tissue between the story points, there's stores there, there's the ability to upgrade your weapons, and the communication, of course, is essential with the characters in the world. There's even a conversation tree system for progressing the story through the world, so you can dive as deep as you want or stay as shallow as you want through the system. This is absolutely something that the Tolkien lore masters at Tolkien Estates have supported. They have given us their blessings when it comes to both the story, because it comes from the appendices and the truth of the story, but at the same time they have supported our approach, right? This whole darker approach of the combat. At the end of the day, we feel like it's more true to the property overall. Now let's see, there are questions. I understand you're not going to ask questions, because you don't do that here apparently. I was going to do some questions, but I think someone's going to step in and help out. I could play the rest, but it'd be really boring and I'd die a lot. You don't want to see that. Go play the game for yourself, die a lot.
Interesting. Yeah, we talk about this Finns and Finns not asking questions at the end of any presentation ever. But I'm trying to go out on a limb here and hope that I might maybe get someone to answer, so that if anyone wants to ask, I can just run in the audience, and if need I can translate the question if you don't want to do it in English. Do we have any questions? Raise of hands. Yeah, just a moment.
Right on. A question.
How's the game mechanics on computer?
Say that again?
The fighting, how does it go with the computer?
You mean
fighting mechanics?
how do they go with the computer?
Yeah, he's asking the PC controls.
Oh yeah,
with
okay.
Keyboard and mouse.
The PC controls are keyboard and mouse, and I think that there are controls as well. So because it's Microsoft enabled. So yeah, it's PC, PS3, and 360. Now other questions? One back there.
Okay, so how long is the game and what kind of replaying value has it?
Good question. How long is the game and what's the replay value? The game is clocking out right now about 20 hours. It is, it's a game that we tell a story in, right? So we want you to enjoy the story. We want you to go to the hubs. There's a couple of challenge maps and a couple of side quests involved in it as well. When you play through, if you stay true to one character, then replayability is fairly decent for a second character, because there are, as I mentioned earlier, special abilities that those characters have that you'll have not experienced, particularly if you never played online. The other thing is in your second play round, you unlock the heroic mode, and in doing so, there are new unlocks within the world that you get to new equipment and new loot and new weapons that you can't actually even get in the first playthrough. Our system is randomized, so you're not guaranteed to get a set, for instance, of armor through the first playthrough, but there's items that you can't even achieve until you get to that second playthrough. So there's definitely some replayability there. But you bring up a good point about the mentions a good point about the inventory and the loot, for instance. So in this case, we also have armor systems that, suit of armors, and as you'd expect, when you go into those, you end up getting, this one doesn't have it. Suits of armors, basically, they're broken up to like 6 or 7 pieces, and you find the specific pieces, the named pieces, and when you start pairing them, you start getting benefits over just the standard benefits that they offer you, whether it's slotting or armor bonus, obviously. So depending on the set, some of them are more heroic than others, some of them are more defensive, and some of them are more offensive, but they're actually quite hard to find. So trading with your friends and trading with the shops is very important. You get 2 of the pieces and it gives you plus, this particular one gives you a +3 critical. You get 3 of the pieces and it then adds another 5% to your health. You get a 4th piece and you can have, who knows, additional mana generation. So the sets of armor through our game, and they're all named through Lord of the Rings canon, as you'd expect, but the sets that we have are continuous as well. It's something to engage with. Another question?
kättä rohkeasti, niin mä näen sen täältä valojen loisteesta. Siellä minä tulen.
So here's a good example of part of a set, right?
Is the campaign playable with in co-op with just 2 players, or do you have to have 3?
Well, no. So yeah, the point of clarity is there's 3 characters always present in the game, but you don't have to have 3 players. If you're playing by yourself, if I'm playing as the dwarf, then the elf and human characters are computer controlled. They support you in the adventure. They're beside you the whole time. If you sit down and you're playing dwarf and elf on the couch, that third person, the human, is also controlled by a computer. So you've got the 3 throughout the campaign, but at the same time, you don't have to play all 3 of them. They don't have to be slotted the whole time. Now, the 2 of you can play on the couch and then play online for the third person, so you can still have that, but you're not required to. It's just present all the time. And when you're playing by yourself with the AI, you can give limited commands to those AIs so they can engage, defend, attack, etc. It gives you a little more control when you're playing alone tactically on the battlefield.
Okei, mä kysyn yhden kysymyksen tähän väliin. One of my own questions while people have time to think of their own. So, I guess you're aiming for a pretty challenging game, not like the quite easy licensed Lord of the Rings games we had before. So,
You're right.
how tough are we talking?
You know, when you're playing in our game, you really need to pay attention to your other companions. As you saw, I needed to be revived quite often. Yeah, play style, play skills, you know, whatever. But it's important to play together and to be conscious of each other. And if you're playing online, even more so, because they're actual friends of yours. So it's a tough game. I mean, it ramps early on. It gives you the opportunity to explore the combat system, and there's quite a lot. You know, there's blocks, there's rolls, there's range, there's special abilities. Dig into those because it is going to be a challenging game. If you don't work together, you won't make it through the levels. And it's meant to be a good on-ramp for Lord of the Rings fans, but a challenge for core players.
Onko lisää vielä kyssäreitä? Kättä vaan. Löytyy.
Is there any other characters besides those 3 or just them?
It's fixed to those 3, and that's in part because of the story we're telling. You can imagine that when we went to the Tolkien team, we said, hey, we want to make a new story in Lord of the Rings, and you can imagine how that went over. Not so good, and you know, we knew also that there's the fans, you guys. It's important for us to stay true to the lore. So when it comes time to actually create a story, we needed to tell a good story, and for continuity, we left the characters specific to those 3, so that it is the proper story. If you start, there were chances early on to take 3 dwarves or et cetera, and it broke the fun of the actual what you're playing, and it broke the storyline, and that was very, very important to us. So you play with the 3. You can choose one of the 3 characters, but you're fixed.
When we met today, that there's also some character customization on the looks, right? So you can kind of customize the character, so it's
sure.
Like the other one.
And again, you've seen here, I'm messing around with the inventory stuff. Not only do you have obviously the ability to swap out what you're going to use as a weapon, but you also have the ability to back to this screen, right? This is where you generate your skills and the actual character stats themselves. There's the 4 key stats you can assign points when you level up each time. So through those processes, you're going to end up with a character that's a bit different than anybody else is out there.
Okay, I was wondering myself about crafting. So you mentioned that at least the elf can craft things, and you can share everything she makes with the other players.
Yeah, it's you know, if you're playing the elf character specifically, it's a lot of fun because there's rarity built into the system, so that as you're going through the environments, there are sneakier spots and there are more obvious spots, and the sneakier spots have the rare herbs, and when you mix those, there's some extremely powerful potions out there. You can either sell them back to the shops, use them yourself, or trade them and share them with your friends.
Okei, onko vielä lisää? Nostakaa vaan niin, että mä näen täältä.
Any other questions?
I see one. Okay, so so we talked about the elf character and the dwarf, but what kind of abilities can we expect from the human?
In our human character, I mentioned earlier, you know, he's the master of both ranged and melee combat. He's a ranger. What he brings to the table is the ability for tracking and evasion. Tracking allows him to find footprints on the ground that, again, only he can see, and when he does, it typically leads to something good. That's something that at the end of the level, when you're looking at, oh, did we unlock everything on the level? Did they get to see everything? And unless you're playing through multiple times or with your friends, you're not going to see those things. So he has the ability to find different paths through the map as well as find stashes. And then the other thing is his evasion. His ability to go unseen. You can use that. It's metered like everything else, but you can use that to sneak around behind opponents and come out of evasion mode and either attack someone in the back ranks, archers that are giving you a problem, reach a certain objective, or simply come around from behind and do additional damage to heavy enemies. So tracking and evasion are his thing. Other questions? Back there? Very back. Some of the other questions have been, is it an open world? And in truth, it's not, because again, we're telling a story. You can go back and replay areas, and you can play the side quests. The objective, though, is to proceed you through this story, because at the same time, you know, your story is progressing at the same time as the ring is heading to Mordor. So it's concurrent, and to break too far away from that breaks from the lore altogether.
Okay, so the question I got from there is that are there any other multiplayer modes than just the campaign? Is there any separate mode?
Yeah, no. So there's the campaign and there's a couple of challenge maps from a different mode, but there's no PvP. We actually don't even have leaderboards for the individual characters because back to the goal being co-op. It's not very cooperative if I'm trying to gun you down or in a PvP friendly fire environment. So we don't have like any of those kinds of modes. The only mode we have is the campaign one, plus the ability to play in challenge. And the challenge maps are great because it's kind of like a horde mode, and you're totally getting bomb rushed in those modes. But what you're getting out of those modes is experience and loot that you can bring. Like I said earlier, it's persistent. You can bring all that right back into your game. So it's a great way to level up a little bit if you're getting behind or if you're feeling like you're underpowered. It gives you the freedom to do that.
Vieläkö? Rohkeasti vaan ja heiluttakaa niin kovasti, että mä varmasti näen.
Is that it?
I guess that might be it.
All right. Well, the game comes out on Wednesday next week. It's on PC, PS3, and 360.
Joo, ja mulle puhuttiin kertomaan myös, että siis pelihän on siis testattavissa tuolla 3 pelaajan kooppi, ja siellä samassa paikassa voi myös ennakkotilata tätä peliä.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can pre-order.
Oh, that's right. You can pre-order, and of course they've got the game in there for you to play on as well. And the gore is turned back on over there. All right. Thanks for coming out, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.